The hammer slipped from my sweat-slicked fingers, clattering against the splintered fence post like a gunshot in the humid afternoon haze. And that's when I saw him, Jake Harlan, my neighbor of 3 goddamn years, shirtless and glistening, muscles rippling as he heaved a warped board into place just feet away. "Adam, you look like you're about to keel over," he said, his voice low and gravelly, laced with that easy Midwestern drawl that always hit me like a sucker punch. His green eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my pulse thunder in my ears. In that split second, as our hands brushed reaching for the same nail, the world narrowed to the heat of his skin against mine, and I knew, deep in my gut, the way you know a storm's brewing before the sky cracks open, that fixing this fence was the last thing on either of our minds. I wiped my forehead with the back of my arm, the salt stinging my eyes, but it was nothing compared to the burn low in my belly. We'd started this project 2 days ago, a mutual gripe over the sagging boundary line between our backyards in this sleepy suburb of Kansas City. Maple trees arching overhead like judgmental old ants, the air thick with the scent of fresh-cut grass and distant barbecue smoke. Jake had moved in with his wife, Sarah, right after I bought my place. She was all polished smiles and PDA meetings, the kind of woman who baked casseroles for block parties and asked about your mama like she gave a damn. Me? I was the quiet graphic designer who worked from home, sketching logos for craft breweries while nursing a divorce that still tasted like regret. 32 years old, single as hell, and yeah, I'd noticed Jake from day one, those broad shoulders filling out his work shirts, the way he'd wave from his deck with a beer in hand, oblivious to how his laugh could unravel me. But today was different. Sarah was out of town for some conference in Chicago, and Jake had shown up at my door at dawn with coffee and a toolbox, his grin wolfish under the brim of his Royals cap. "Figured we'd knock this out before the game starts," he'd said, and I'd nodded like an idiot, pretending my heart wasn't already sprinting. Now, 2 hours in, the sun beat down mercilessly, turning the earth to dust under our boots. We'd torn out the rotten sections, measured twice like my old man taught me, and started rebuilding. Simple work, or so I'd thought. Until now. "You good?" Jake asked, straightening up, his chest rising and falling with the effort. Sweat traced rivulets down his pecs, pooling in the divots of his abs, and I forced my gaze back to the post, hammering the nail home with more force than necessary. The wood bit in, fibers splintering. "Yeah, just heat's a bitch." My voice came out rougher than I intended, and I cursed inwardly. "Keep it together, Adam." He's straight as an arrow, married to boot. But the lie felt flimsy even in my head. There'd been moments, lingering looks over the hedge, that time last summer when he'd caught me staring during a neighborhood cookout and held my eyes a beat too long, his Adam's apple bobbing like he was swallowing something forbidden. He chuckled, low and warm, stepping closer to hand me a water bottle from the cooler. Our fingers brushed again, deliberate this time? No, wishful thinking. "Drink up, neighbor. Don't need you passing out on me. Sarah'd kill me if I let that happen. Sarah." The name landed like a cold splash, grounding me. I twisted the cap off and chugged, the icy liquid sliding down my throat, but it did nothing to quench the fire. We worked in companionable silence for a stretch, the rhythmic thud of hammer on wood syncing with the cicada's hum. Jake was a contractor, hands calloused from framing houses and pouring foundations, the kind of guy who'd grown up wrenching on his dad's truck in a garage reeking of motor oil and Pabst Blue Ribbon. Me, I'd escaped small-town Missouri for the city lights, only to circle back to this picket fence purgatory after my ex, Tyler, decided he preferred Manhattan bars to my quiet nights in. "Remember that storm last spring?" Jake said suddenly, wiping his face with his discarded tee. "Tore half this thing down. Thought it'd take out my shed too." I nodded, driving another nail. "Yeah. Woke me up at 3 a.m. Sounded like the world's ending." He leaned against the new post, arms crossed, biceps flexing in a way that should be illegal. Sarah was freaked. Clung to me like a koala. "You? Solo life treating you all right?" The question hung there, innocent on the surface, but his eyes, God, those eyes, searched mine like he was fishing for more. I shrugged, hammering harder. "It's fine." Beats the alternative. Alternative. Getting my heart stomped on. The words slipped out before I could reel them back. Raw and unfiltered. Heat crept up my neck. Not from the sun this time. Jake's brow furrowed, and he pushed off the post, closing the gap between us until I could smell him. Sweat and cedar cologne and something earthier, like fresh soil after rain. "Hey," he said softly, his hand landing on my shoulder, firm and warm. "Whoever that bastard was, he didn't deserve you." My breath hitched. His thumb grazed my collarbone, accidental or not, sending sparks skittering across my skin. I looked up, and there it was, that pull, magnetic and terrifying, like staring down a cliff edge. The hammer dangled forgotten in my grip. "Jake!" Whatever I was about to say died as he leaned in, his lips crashing against mine with the force of a man who'd been holding back a dam. It was messy, desperate, teeth clashing, his stubble scraping my jaw, his hands fisting in my shirt to yank me closer. I dropped the tool, my arms wrapping around his waist, pulling him flush against me. He tasted like salt and stolen coffee, groaned low in his throat as my tongue swept in, and for a heartbeat, the world was just us. Two bodies colliding over a half-built fence, hearts pounding in frantic unison. We broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed together, his breath hot on my lips. "Fuck, Adam," he whispered, voice wrecked. "I've wanted that since the day I moved in." Reality slammed back like a bucket of ice water. Sarah. The ring on his finger glinting in the sun. My backyard, exposed to any nosy neighbor with binoculars. "What the hell are we doing?" I rasped, stepping back, my hands trembling. He raked a hand through his damp hair, eyes wild. "I don't know. But don't make me stop." And just like that, the fence and everything else, forgotten, we tumbled into the shade of my deck, hearts racing toward whatever beautiful, broken disaster lay ahead. The afternoon blurred into a haze of stolen touches and hushed confessions, the half-finished fence mocking us from the yard like a skeleton of good intentions. Jake's hands were everywhere, mapping the planes of my back under my shirt, thumbs circling my nipples until I arched into him with a whimper I couldn't stifle. We were on the old Adirondack chair, him straddling my lap, his weight grounding me even as my mind spun. "Tell me to stop," he murmured against my neck, teeth grazing the pulse point that betrayed my every frantic beat. "Say it, and I will," but I couldn't. Not when his hips ground down, friction sparking through denim, not when his kisses turned soft and searching, like he was memorizing the shape of my mouth. "Don't," I breathed, fingers digging into his thighs. "God, Jake, don't stop." He pulled back just enough to look at me, those green eyes stormy with want and something deeper. Guilt? Regret? No. It was hunger, pure and unfiltered, the kind that had simmered for years behind polite waves and small talk. You're killing me, Adam. All this time, watching you mow your lawn shirtless, sketching on your porch with that concentration face. I told myself it was nothing, just admiration. But it's more. It's you. His words cracked something open in my chest. A fissure I'd sealed shut after Tyler, after the late nights waiting for texts that never came, the fights over space that ended with him packing a bag for good. I'd built walls higher than this damn fence, convinced love was a sucker's game. Yet here was Jake, solid and real, his calluses rough against my smooth skin, whispering truths I'd only dared dream. We moved inside then, the screen door slamming behind us like a full stop on sanity. My living room was a mess of freelance sketches and empty takeout boxes, but he didn't care. Pushed me against the wall with a growl, devouring my mouth while his hands worked my belt free. Clothes hit the floor in a frantic trail, my jeans pooling at my ankles, his cargoes kicked aside, until it was skin on skin, hot and urgent. He was beautiful, freckles dusting his shoulders from summer jobs, a faint scar snaking across his ribs from some boyhood mishap with barbed wire. I traced it with my tongue, earning a hiss that shot straight to my core. Bedroom, I managed, voice hoarse, and he scooped me up like I weighed nothing, laughing that deep, rumbling laugh as he carried me down the hall. We fell onto the unmade sheets, a tangle of limbs and laughter turning to moans. He was gentle at first, exploratory, kisses peppered down my chest, his beard tickling my hip as he took me in his mouth, slow and reverent, eyes locked on mine the whole time. I came undone under him, fingers twisting in his hair, the world narrowing to the wet heat of his tongue and the ache he'd built so masterfully. But Jake, he held back, trembling when I tried to reciprocate, his hand guiding mine instead to stroke him firm and leaking. Not yet, he said, voice strained. Want this to last. Want you. We flipped, him beneath me, and I savored it. The way he bucked into my touch, head thrown back, throat exposed like an offering. I pinned his wrists above his head, leaning down to claim his mouth as I prepped him with lube from the nightstand, fingers curling until he cursed my name like a prayer. When I finally pushed inside, it was exquisite torture, tight and welcoming, his legs wrapping around my waist to pull me deeper. We moved together, unhurried at first, then frantic, the headboard thumping a rhythm against the wall. His nails raked my back, drawing blood I didn't feel, and when he shattered body arching, a broken sob tearing from his lips, I followed, collapsing into him, our breaths mingling in the afterglow. We lay there afterward, sticky and spent, his arm slung over my waist like it belonged. The ceiling fan whirred lazily, stirring the air heavy with sex and secrets. Sarah, I started, the word a ghost between us. He tensed, then sighed, pressing a kiss to my shoulder. She's good people, Adam. But it's not. It's not this. Hasn't been for years. We're staying together for the house, the life we built. The optics, you know? Small town roots die hard. I turned to face him, searching those eyes for lies, but found only weariness. And this? What is it? He cupped my cheek, thumb brushing my lip. It's real. First real thing I've felt in forever. Give me time. I'll figure it out. I wanted to believe him, God. How I did. But doubt crept in like dusk, shadowing the golden hour we'd stolen. Still, when he kissed me slow and sweet, promising tomorrow, with a grin that lit his face, I let myself fall. Just a little. The next morning dawned crisp, the kind of October bite that turned leaves to fire and breath to fog. Jake was gone when I woke, but his scent lingered on the pillows, promise etched in cotton. I found a note on the kitchen counter, coffee's on. Back after work. Dinner? Jay, my heart did that stupid flip, and I burned the toast grinning like a fool. Work dragged, client revisions on a brewery label that looked like a bad acid trip, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying every gasp, every touch. By 5, I was pacing the kitchen, chopping onions for chili with more force than finesse. The sizzle of beef in the pan a poor substitute for the heat I'd craved all day. The fence loomed unfinished outside, a reminder of how quickly lines blur. His truck rumbled into the drive at 6 sharp, headlights cutting the twilight. I met him at the door, and he pulled me into a kiss that tasted like sawdust and longing, hands roaming like we'd been apart months, not hours. Missed you, he murmured, nuzzling my neck. Sarah called. She's extending the trip, some panel tomorrow. Relief flooded me, sharp and guilty. Good. Means more time for this. I tugged him inside, dinner forgotten as we devoured each other on the couch. Lazy, exploratory, his fingers tracing patterns on my thigh while I fed him bites of cooling chili between kisses. That night, we talked. Really talked. Curled under a blanket, fire crackling in the grate I'd installed last winter. He opened up about the boy he'd buried deep. Summers wrestling in haylofts with a farmhand named Eli. The shame that followed when his dad caught them. The hasty marriage to Sarah after college to set things right. I love her. In a way, he admitted, voice rough. But not like this. Not like you make me feel alive, Adam. Scene. I shared 2 Tyler's Ghost. The therapy sessions where I'd finally named the ache as grief for a love that never fit. The quiet pride in rebuilding solo. You're the first since, I whispered. Who makes me want to try again? His hand found mine, squeezing. Then let's try. Slow. But real. For a week, it was paradise. Stolen afternoons hammering the fence by day. By night tumbling into bedsheets that smelled of us. We'd drive to dive bars on the edge of town, nursing IPAs and bumping knees under scarred tables, his foot hooking mine like a secret code. One evening, under a sky bruised purple, he took me to his favorite spot, a gravel overlook where the city lights sprawled like fallen stars. "Want to show you my world," he said, pulling me close, his kiss tasting of wind and whiskey. But paradise has cracks. Sarah returned on a Thursday, her SUV crunching gravel in their drive. I watched from my window, heart in my throat, as Jake hugged her stiffly, his eyes flicking to mine across the yard, apology and hunger in equal measure. Texts came sparse. Busy tonight. Tomorrow, then nothing. Friday, he didn't show. Saturday, I mowed the lawn shirtless on purpose, the roar of the engine drowning my rising panic. Sunday, he appeared at dawn, toolbox in hand. "Finish the fence?" he asked, voice casual, but his eyes were shadowed, jaw tight. We worked in silence, the air thick with unspoken rot. Nails bit wood, Hammers swung like accusations. Finally, as the sun climbed, I snapped. "What's going on, Jake? You ghost me for days." He paused, wiping sweat, avoiding my gaze. "Sarah's suspicious. Found a receipt from that bar. Asked questions. My stomach dropped. And I lied. Said it was a client thing." He stepped closer, voice dropping. "But Adam, it's eating me up. The lying. The hiding. Then stop hiding." The words were out, bold and brittle. "Tell her. Or tell me this is over." His face crumpled, hand reaching for mine, but he pulled back, glancing at his house. "I can't. Not yet. The fallout. It'd destroy everything." "Everything but us?" I laughed, bitter. "Or is there no us?" "There is." He grabbed my arm, pulling me behind the half-built fence, out of sight. His kiss was fierce, punishing teeth and tongue and desperation. "There is you and me. Swear it." I melted into him, hating myself for it, the fence digging into my back like bars. We broke apart breathless, his forehead to mine. "Give me a week. I'll talk to her." I nodded, clinging to the lie we both needed. But a week stretched to 2, excuses piling like autumn leaves. Work crunch, family dinner, not the right time. I drowned in it, nights scrolling his socials, seeing tagged photos of him and Sarah at the Harvest Festival. Her hand on his arm, his smile forced. My sketches turned dark, swirling inks of fences that trapped lovers in wire and shadow. Then, the storm hit. Not the weather kind, a nor'easter dumping rain like judgment, but the real one. Late November, gray skies pressing low. I got a text at midnight, "Porch. Now." He was soaked when I opened the door. No jacket, eyes red-rimmed. "She knows," he blurted, water dripping from his hair. Found the texts. The ones from that bar night. My blood ran cold. "What did you say?" "Everything." His voice broke. Told her about us. About wanting this. She threw me out. Said I'm a liar, coward. Maybe she's right. I pulled him inside, towel drying his shivering frame, heart a war drum. "Jake, don't." He caught my wrists, pulling me close. "I chose you. Chose us. But God, Adam, it hurts. Like ripping out my own guts." We sank to the floor, him curled against my chest, sobs racking his broad frame. I held him through the night, whispering nonsense about fresh starts, new fences without gates to lock us in. Dawn crept in, pale and forgiving, and when he looked up, eyes swollen but clear, something shifted. "I love you," he said, simple as breathing. Didn't know it, till I almost lost it. The words unlocked me, tears hot on my cheeks. "Love you too." Scared shitless. But yeah, we made love then, slow and healing, bodies moving like a bomb, erasing the storm's sting. Afterward, tangled in sheets, plans spilled out. He'd crash on my couch, till he found a place, file papers quietly, start therapy because we deserve to do this right. Winter settled in, snow blanketing the yard, the fence finally solid under a crust of ice. Holidays were weird, Thanksgiving at my sister's in St. Louis, Jake tagging along as the neighbor guy, his hand brushing mine under the table. Christmas, We decorated my tree with lights stolen from his garage, his laugh echoing as we hung ornaments shaped like tiny hammers. But peace is fragile. Spring thawed the ground, and with it came the whispers, neighbors side-eyeing Jake's truck in my drive, Sarah's new realtor signs popping up in their yard. She confronted me one April afternoon, standing at the fence line, arms crossed over her cardigan, eyes sharp as new nails. "He's happy with you," she said. "No venom, just weary truth. I see it now. Just don't break him like I almost did." I nodded, throat tight. "Wouldn't dream of it." She smiled faintly, turned away. "Fix that gate, will ya? Keeps swinging in the wind." Summer brought heat again, and us stronger, scarred but standing. We finished the fence on a July morning. Beers cracked at noon to celebrate, his arm around my shoulders as we surveyed our work. "To boundaries," he toasted, clinking bottles. "And what happens next?" I added, leaning in for a kiss that tasted like forever. His grin was pure sunlight. Hearts racing? Every damn day. And they did, through barbecues where he held my hand openly, road trips to the Ozarks with windows down and his voice belting off-key Springsteen, quiet nights where we'd lie on the deck, stars wheeling overhead, his fingers laced in mine. Love wasn't a fairy tale. It was work, like mending what breaks. But with Jake, it was worth every splinter, every storm. One evening, as fireflies danced in the yard, he dropped to one knee, not with a ring, but a scrap of wire from the fence, twisted into a rough band. "Marry me?" he asked, voice thick. "Not today, but someday. When we're ready." Tears blurred my vision. "Yes. God, yes." We stood there, wrapped in each other, the fence behind us a testament, not to division, but to what we'd built. Hearts still racing, but now toward home. The wire band burned warm against my finger, a makeshift promise that felt more real than any diamond ever could. Jake pulled me up, kissing me with that fierce tenderness that had become our shorthand for "I choose you." Every time, fireflies blinked like conspirators in the gathering dusk, and for a moment, the world held its breath, our suburb, with its manicured lawns and minivans, oblivious to the quiet revolution in my backyard. But revolutions start small. A shared glance over coffee, a hand on a knee under the dinner table, a life rebuilt plank by plank. That night, we didn't make it to bed. Instead, we spread a blanket on the grass, the dew-wet earth cool beneath us, and made love under the stars, slow, unhurried, his body a map I'd memorized but never tired of exploring. He whispered poetry against my skin, fragments of E.E. Cummings he'd Googled that afternoon, "I carry your heart with me," his voice cracking on the words, and I laughed through tears, pulling him closer until there was no space for doubt. Afterward, we lay tangled, his head on my chest, heartbeat syncing with mine like a metronome for the future. Morning brought the grind me to my drafting table, sketching a logo for a queer-owned coffee roaster in Lawrence, him to a site in Overland Park, framing a spec home that some family would fill with chaos and joy. We texted through the day, dumb memes, a photo of his muddy boots captioned "Thinking of you," my reply a heart eyes emoji that made him chuckle when he read it at lunch. It was mundane magic, the kind that sneaks up on you after the drama fades. But fade it did, unevenly. Sarah's divorce papers arrived mid-August, a manila envelope Jake opened with shaking hands on our kitchen table. It's done, he said. Not relief exactly, but release, like exhaling after holding your breath underwater too long. She moved to an apartment downtown, started dating a yoga instructor named Brett, and we ran into her at the farmer's market one crisp fall Saturday. Awkward hellos turned to stilted chat about heirloom tomatoes. Then, miracle of miracles, genuine laughs over a vendor's overpriced kale. Take care of him, she told me quietly, squeezing my arm. He's a good one, under all that stubborn. I know, I replied, and meant it. Jake and I dove into coupledom with the zeal of new converts. We adopted a mutt from the shelter, a scruffy terrier mix we named Scout, who chewed my best sneakers but slept curled between us like a furry chaperone. Weekends became rituals, hikes in the Flint Hills, where the prairie stretched endless under big skies, his hand in mine as we crested ridges, wind whipping our faces raw. Or lazy Sundays at Boulevard Brewing, sampling flights while debating the merits of hazy IPAs versus stouts, his knee pressed to mine under the bar. Yet, shadows lingered. Not from Sarah, that wound scabbed over clean, but from within. Jake's nightmares started in October, jolting me awake to his thrashing. Murmurs of "Dad, no," and "I'm sorry." His father, a stoic Korean war vet who'd passed 5 years back, had never known the son he raised, the one who'd buried his truth under layers of flannel and football. What if he was right? Jake confessed one night, staring at the ceiling, Scout snoring at our feet. That I'd burn for this. I rolled to face him, tracing the scar on his ribs. He wasn't. And even if, I'd burn with you. We sought a therapist after that, Dr. Ramirez, a no-nonsense Latina with an office overlooking the plaza, who made us unpack the baggage like pros. Sessions were brutal. Jake raging at ghosts, me admitting how Tyler's abandonment had wired me for flight. But we emerged stronger, hands clasped on the walk home, leaves crunching underfoot like affirmations. Thanksgiving that year was ours. No sisters' prying eyes, just a turkey brined in craft beer, mashed potatoes whipped with too much butter, and pie from a bakery in Westport. We ate on the deck, heaters warding off the chill, Scout begging for scraps. To us, Jake toasted with sparkling cider. He was driving to pick up his mom later, clinking his glass to mine. His mother, a soft-spoken widow who'd relocated to a senior community in Wichita, was the wild card. We'd met over Zoom, her squinting at the screen, asking if I was the artist fella, and Jake dreaded the in-person reveal. She arrived the next day, a petite woman with his green eyes and a thermos of kimchi jjigae that filled the house with garlic and ginger. Nerves crackled like static. Jake fidgeted with his napkin, blurting it out over appetizers. "Mom, Adam's my partner. We're together." Silence stretched, thick as the stew. Then she smiled, slow and warm, reaching across to pat my hand. "About time you found joy, Mija no, Mijito." She laughed at her slip, tears glistening. "He looks at you like my late husband did me." That's enough. Relief crashed over Jake like a wave. He hugged her fierce, shoulders shaking. We spent the weekend doting board games where she trounced us at Scrabble, stories of Jake as a kid building forts in the backyard, me sketching her portrait by the firelight. She left with promises of Lunar New Year visits, and Jake turned to me in the empty drive, eyes shining. "You did that. Made it easy." We did. Winter wrapped us in coziness. Snowed-in nights with hot toddies and Netflix binges, his body heat the best blanket. But come January, life threw a curve. My freelance gig dried up, clients ghosting in the post-holiday slump. Bills piled, anxiety gnawing like termites in the fence we'd so proudly mended. Jake found me one night at the kitchen table, spreadsheets glaring accusingly. "Hey," he said, sliding into the chair beside me, chin on my shoulder. "We'll figure it." And we did. He dipped into savings for rent. I hustled side gigs, designing t-shirts for a local pride event. It bonded us deeper, that shared scramble, late nights brainstorming over takeout. His encouragement a lifeline. "Your stuff's gold, babe. They'll see it." Spring bloomed with opportunity. A boutique agency in KC scooped me for a contract. Logos for a string of queer bars up the crossroads. Launch party was electric. Neon lights pulsing. Drag queens lip-syncing Gaga. Jake in a button-down that hugged his frame just right. His hand possessive on my low back. "Proud of you," he murmured in my ear over thumping bass, and I believed him. But joy's flip side is vulnerability. June brought Jake's ex-boss sniffing around. A sleazy developer who'd heard whispers cornered him at a site with slurs hissed low. "Faggot ruining the crew." Jake came home bruised, not physically, but soul deep, punching the bag in the garage until his knuckles split. I cleaned them that night, antiseptic stinging, his head bowed. Hate that word. Hate that it's still out there. Me too. We held each other in the dim light, rage simmering to resolve. Next day, he quit, landed a gig with a fair trade builder in Lawrence. Union strong, zero tolerance. "No more toxic shit," he declared, and I kissed him for it, fierce and grateful. Summer solstice. We marked our anniversary, that fence-fixing day, with a picnic at Loose Park, blankets spread under the rose arbor, champagne fizzing in plastic flutes. Scout chased frisbees, kids shrieking nearby, and Jake pulled a velvet box from his pocket. Not wire this time, a simple silver band, engraved inside what happened next. "Some days today," he said, slipping it on my finger. "Marry me proper." Vows, cake, the works. Tears blurred the petals. Yes. 1,000 times. The engagement party was small. My sister and her wife, Jake's mom, Sarah with Brett in tow, toasting with awkward grace. Laughter flowed, stories swapped, and as dusk fell, Jake pulled me aside, under the string lights strung across our deck. "Heart's still racing," he whispered, hand over mine where the ring warmed my skin. "Mine too," I replied, pulling him into the shadows. "Always will." We danced then, slow and swaying, the fence silhouetted against the fireflies, a boundary crossed, a life embraced. Love wasn't the absence of storms. It was the shelter we built together, plank by loving plank. Yet, as autumn leaves turned again, a new shadow loomed, not betrayal, but time's cruel arithmetic. Jake's mom called in September, voice frail over the line. Stage 4, the doctors said, pancreatic, fast-moving. We drove to Wichita that weekend, the highway blurring through tears, his hand white-knuckled on the wheel. She was frail in the hospital bed, but her eyes lit when we entered, him first, then me, introduced as my fiancé, Adam. "Handsome," she murmured, patting the bed. "Take care of my boy. Always," I promised, throat tight. The weeks blurred into hospice vigils, her stories retold. Jiggy simmered on my stove for takeout, Jake's hand in mine during the endless beeps. She slipped away on a Tuesday dawn. October's chill seeping through the window. Jake's sob the only sound as monitors flatlined. I held him there, in that sterile room, whispering, "I'm here," until words failed. The funeral was Methodist. Her wishes, hymn swelling, her brother eulogizing her quiet strength. Jake spoke last, voice steady through grief. "She taught me love's not loud. It's showing up." And Adam. He shows up every day. Eyes met across the pews, and I nodded, love a anchor in the storm. Grief hollowed him after, nights pacing the kitchen, days lost in work. I gave him space, but not absence. Coffee brewed black, walks with Scout at dawn, sketches of her face from memory, framed for his nightstand. Therapy doubled down, Dr. Ramirez guiding us through the fog. Grief isn't linear. It's a fence, patch one spot, another breaks. By Thanksgiving, cracks mended. We hosted, my sister, Sarah and Brett, a ragtag family forged in fire. Turkey carved, toasts raised to absent souls, and Jake's hand found mine under the table, squeezing, "Thank you." For what? Everything next. Winter healed slow, but sure, snowshoeing in the hills, his laugh returning like crocuses. Spring brought green shoots, wedding plans sketched on napkins, venue hunts in the Nelson Atkins Gardens, vows drafted in stolen moments. "In sickness and health," he read aloud one night, pen pausing. "Think we nailed that one early." I kissed his temple. Rookie mistake. But yeah, our wedding was June, under a sky vast as promise, backyard transformed, the fence draped in wildflowers. 50 souls. Queer kin from pride parades, straight allies from block parties, Jake's crew in flannel ties. Vows exchanged at sunset, his voice cracking on, "I carry your heart." Mine steady with "What happened next is us." Rings slid on, gold now, etched with fences stylized as infinity. The reception thrummed. Barbecue ribs, craft brews, a playlist from our road trips. First dance to Wonderwall. His cheek to mine, whispering, hearts exploding. Mine too racing, full, alive. Years folded like pages. Scout's gray muzzle. My agency thriving. Jake's firm expanding to green builds. Conflicts came. Fights over chores. His temper flaring at traffic. My anxiety spiking on deadlines, but we mended. Always. With words and touch. The fence our metaphor. One October Eve. A decade on. We stood at that line, solid oak now, unyielding. "Remember?" he asked, arm around me, leaves drifting like confetti. "Like yesterday." I leaned in, kiss soft. "What happened next?" He grinned, green eyes eternal. "More of this. You and me, hearts racing still, into the endless next." A decade's a funny thing. Blurs the edges of memory until what once felt like a lightning strike settles into the steady hum of a life well wired. But some moments, they stay sharp, etched like veins in the oak fence that had outlasted storms and seasons. That October evening, with Jake's arm heavy around my shoulders, the air crisp with the promise of frost, I traced the grain with my eyes, remembering the day it all splintered and reformed. "You think it'd hold up to another twister?" I teased, bumping his hip. He chuckled, that low rumble that still sent shivers down my spine. "Built it solid, didn't we? Just like us." His lips brushed my temple, a casual intimacy we'd earned through trial and error, the kind that doesn't demand fanfare but glows in the quiet. Scout, old man now, hips creaky, hobbled over, nosing my hand for treats, and we obliged, tossing kibble bits onto the grass where fireflies had once danced like witnesses to our chaos. Life post-vows had unfolded in chapters we hadn't scripted. Year 1. The honeymoon in Provincetown. Cape Cod winds whipping our faces on whale watches. Nights tangled in a B&B with creaky floors and ocean roar. We'd laughed over lobster rolls, his fingers sticky with butter as he fed me a bite, whispering misses. Harlan? With a wink that made me swat him playful. Fiancé's fine. Cowboy. But the ring on my finger, matching his, felt right. A quiet rebellion against the world's old scripts. Work boomed unevenly. My agency, Outlines Creative, snagged a contract with Hallmark. Ironic, sketching queer valentines for the Heartland giant, while Jake's firm, Harlan Builds, pivoted to eco-homes, timber frames with solar panels that dotted the suburbs like beacons. Money flowed steadier, enough for a down payment on a fixer-upper in Brookside. Craftsman bungalow with a wraparound porch, creaky oak floors we'd refinish together, weekends sanding until our lungs ached with dust and dreams. But bliss breeds blind spots. Year 2 brought the first real fracture, not betrayal, but biology's indifference. We talked kids vaguely, fostering, maybe, or adoption after settling, until a routine checkup unearthed Jake's low count. The doc's words clinical. Options exist. But Jake shut down, retreating to the garage, wrenching on his truck until midnight oil stains bloomed under his nails. I found him there, hood up, shoulders hunched. Talk to me, I pleaded, hand on his back. What's the point? He muttered, socket clanking. Can't even give you a family, I knelt, forcing his eyes to mine. Family's not blood. Is this us showing up? Therapy unpacked it. His dad's legacy of provide or perish. My own buried ache from a childhood split by divorce. We grieved the what if, then pivoted volunteering at the shelter, walking litters of puppies that tugged at heartstrings. Year 3, we fostered Mia. A wiry teen with purple hair and trust issues thicker than fog, placed after her mom's overdose. She tested us, sneaking out, walls graffitied with Sharpie rebellion, but Jake's patience, my steady presence, cracked her shell. Adoption papers signed on her 16th, our family sealed with hugs and homemade cake. Parenting rewired us. Mia's soccer games filled weekends, Jake hollering from the sidelines in a ref's whistle around his neck, me packing post-game PB and JS. Nights blurred with homework battles and heart-to-hearts over hot cocoa. Her coming out as bi at 15, a milestone we celebrated with pride flags strung across her room. You guys get it, she said, shy grin, and our chests swelled. Proof love multiplies, fence-like, enclosing more without weakening. Yet, external winds howled. Year 5, the election cycle, red-blue divides ripping Kansas City seams. Jake's crew splintered, half walking out over a supervisor's rants, slurs flung like shrapnel. He came home hollow-eyed, recounting a near fistfight at the site. Thought we'd moved past this shit, he growled, pacing our kitchen, Mia upstairs blasting Halsey to drown homework woes. I pulled him to the table, hands framing his face. We have. For us. Don't let them rewrite it. Protests followed, marches down Main Street, signs scrawled with love wins, Mia chanting beside us, her small fist raised. Media snippets captured Jake's sign. Build bridges, not walls. It went viral locally, landing him a TEDx invite. Nerves jangling as he rehearsed in our living room. Me and Mia his captive audience, applauding till our palms stung. Success swelled the firm. By year 7, Harlan Builds broke ground on a community center in the West Bottoms. Affordable housing with queer youth programs, a safe space etched in steel and stone. I designed the logo, interlocking fences forming a heart, tagline mend what divides. Opening night, ribbon cut under floodlights. Sarah, now a fixture at our barbecues. Brett her steady, clinked glasses with us. You too, she said, eyes misty. You're the real deal, but cracks spiderwebbed. Year 8. My agency's expansion to Austin tempted with equity shares, a corner office overlooking Lady Bird Lake. Jake supported, go chase it, babe, but distance nod. Video calls couldn't capture his scent, the way he'd tug me close after a long day. Mia, off to KU for graphic design, my Alma influence clear. Texted memes but missed family dinners. 6 months in. Burnout hit. Client fires at dawn. Jake's voice tinny through speakers. I returned early, Texas twang fading, to find him waiting on the porch. Scout's successor, a lab mix named Harper, lolling at his feet. Missed my fence mender, he said, pulling me into a kiss that tasted like homecoming. Guilt followed. Should have stayed. He shook his head, fingers in my hair. We build together. Not apart. The agency pivoted remote hybrid. Austin a satellite. KC our anchor. Year 9 brought Mia's wedding, 25. Head over heels for a barista named Lena. Ceremony in Loose Park under the same roses as ours. We walked her down the aisle. Jake's arm linked with mine. Tears blurring vows of equality in all things. Reception danced into dawn. Father-daughter twirls turning to group shuffles. Lena's family eyeing us wary at first, then warm with acceptance. You raised a firecracker, her dad toasted, and Jake beamed, pride radiating. But time's thief struck deepest in year 10. Jake's annual checkup, a shadow on the lung scan, early, treatable, but the word cancer landed like a felled oak. Biopsy confirmed, chemo scheduled, and our world tilted. Nights, he traced my ring, voice steady, fight this, then fence party. Damn right, Mia drove in weekends, Lena packing care kits, Sarah organized meal trains, her yoga calm a bomb. Treatments ravaged him, hair lost to the clippers. I shaved mine in solidarity, our scalps brushing in bed like conspirators. Nausea hit hard. I'd hold the basin, wiping his brow, whispering, you're my hero. Always. Remission came spring 11th, scans clean. Celebration a blowout at the community center. Banners proclaiming Harlan strong. Toasts flowed. Mia's teary dads. My agency's crew. His builders chanting, boss. Jake pulled me aside mid-dance. Breath warm. What happened next? Best plot twist. I kissed him. Fierce. Our story. Unfinished. Now, that October eve, with Harper nosing leaves and the air humming harvest, we walked the yard's edge, fence unyielding, love enduring. Mia called later, news bubbling, pregnant, surrogate, but grandkids. Joy exploded, plans for nurseries sketched on napkins. Jake hung up, grinning. Next chapter, I laced fingers with his, rings glinting. Racing hearts, all the way, and so we went, Mending, building, loving through every what next. Fence standing sentinel to a life profoundly, humanly ours. Unfinished stories have a way of looping back, threads pulling taut until the weave reveals patterns you missed in the rush. 11 years in, with grandbaby ultrasounds pinned to the fridge like talismans and Harper's snores punctuating our evenings, Jake and I had settled into that rare rhythm, the kind where silences speak volumes, and touches say, "I see you," without fanfare. But life, that sly narrator, always drafts a twist. It arrived on a sweltering July afternoon, the kind where Kansas humidity clings like regret, and the fence, our old sentinel, creaked under the weight of climbing ivy. I'd been in the garage, sorting sketches for a retrospective exhibit at the Nelson Atkins, 2 decades of outlines work, from pride tees to corporate rebrands, curated as lines that bind. Jake was at the site, overseeing a retrofit for a historic warehouse turned co-op housing, his texts buzzing in. Wrap early? Ice cream run? Heart emoji. Always. Mia, bellied out at 7 months. FaceTimed from Lawrence. Dad's. The nursery's blue. Tell Grandpa Jake no more Royals gear. We laughed. Her glow infectious. Lena's voice chiming in background about crib assembly fails. The call came at 4. Jake's foreman. Voice clipped. Accident on site. Fall from the scaffold. He's stable, but hospital. Now, the drive to KU Med was a blur. Tires screeching onto I-70, radio static drowning my pleas to empty highways. Not now, I muttered, knuckles white. Flashes. His hand in mine at Mia's birth reveal, the chemo couch where I'd read aloud from dog-eared Vonnegut. Stable. That word a lifeline. Chaos swallowed me. Beeps, bleach tang, a nurse guiding to a curtained bay where Jake lay, face ashen, arm in a sling, ribs taped. Hey, handsome, he rasped, eyes crinkling despite the pain meds glazing them. Told the crew I'd be back Monday. Slipped on a loose plank. Idiot move. Relief crashed. Hot and humiliating. Tears spilling as I gripped his good hand. Scared the shit out of me. He thumbed them away. Takes more than gravity to fell this fence builder. Scans showed fractures. No spinal, 6 weeks off. PT after. We rode home in a haze. Him propped on pillows in our bed. Me fussing with ice packs and broth. Mia arriving with lasagna and lectures. Slow down, old man. Recovery tested us. Mirrors to year 8 siege. Jake chafed at downtime, pacing one-armed, barking at blueprints on his laptop, while I juggled exhibit deadlines and baby shower prep. Snaps flared. Can't you just sit? I'd huff. Exhausted. Easy for you. Pens not pouring concrete. Dr. Ramirez reconvened us, her office now virtual, unpacking the fear beneath barbs. His mortality echo from cancer, my terror of losing the man who'd mended my fractures. You're both builders, she said. Repair the rift same way. We did nights on the porch swing. Harper's head in his lap. Me sketching his portrait. Lines softer now. Crow's feet mapping laughs. Scar faint but proud. Beautiful, he murmured, tracing my pencil hand. Like the day we met. Fence half down. Hearts half up. August brought the exhibit opening. Galley walls alive with my work. Spotlight on the Heart Fence logo that started it all. Jake hobbled in on crutches. Suit sharp. Mia waddling beside with Lena. Bellies brushing in solidarity. Toasts rang. Curators praising resilient narratives. old clients reminiscing. But Jake's speech, unscripted, mic in good hand, stole it. Adam's lines bind us. Not walls, but welcomes. To the next sketch. Crowd applauded. I kissed him on stage, unapologetic, whistles erupting. September's harvest moon saw Mia's labor. False starts turning frantic. Us granddads-to-be pacing her hospital room. Lena's mom cracking bad jokes in Spanglish. Dawn broke with Elias's cry, tiny fists waving like victors. Jake held him first, tears carving tracks. Hey, little man. Welcome to the build. I followed, his weight feather-light, eyes Jake's green, fierce already. Parenting grandparents was chaos rekindled. Elias's colic nights shuttling between homes, Mia's sleep-deprived texts at 2 a.m., our fridge stocked with frozen burritos. Jake thrived, diaper changes with contractor precision. Lullabies sung off-key about fences that hold the stars. But age whispered. His knee twinged from the fall. My eyes strained over fine lines. Scout's ghost in Harper's slowing gait. Year 12 dawned with opportunity's double edge. Harlan builds bid on a massive project, revitalizing the river market, mixed use with artist lofts, my agency's dream client. Late nights merged, him poring over bids, me mocking up facades, Elias gumming blueprints on the floor. Success landed, groundbreaking under autumn arches, but pressure mounted, deadlines colliding, tempers fraying over takeout-fueled arguments. You're micromanaging, he'd snap at a design tweak. And you're bull-headed, I'd retort, storming to the studio. Fracture peaked Thanksgiving, Elias's first, table set festive, but words escalated over turkey. This project's killing us, I yelled, plate pushed away. Silence fell, Mia's eyes wide, Lena corralling the baby. Jake stood, voice low. Then let's stop building walls. We retreated to the garage, tools silent witnesses. Scared, he admitted, back to the truck. Of losing you to this grind. Like before. Me too. Embrace followed. Apologies murmured into flannel. Pivot, we delegated him to a project lead. Me to juniors, reclaiming evenings for Elias's giggles. Harper's walks. Each other. Winter 13th brought legacy's pull. Jake's high school reunion in his hometown rural Missouri. Cornfields whispering old ghosts. Come? He asked, hesitant. I did, driving winding roads, his hand in mine. The gym echoed awkward. Ex-jocks slapping backs, whispers trailing us like smoke. His old wrestling coach cornered him. Heard you went. Different. Wife left. Jake's jaw set. Partner stayed. Adam, arm around me, chin lifted. Room hushed. Then a buddy, Eli, the hayloft ghost, clapped his shoulder. Proud of you, man. Beers flowed after. Stories unearthed. Acceptance hard-won but real. Spring saw Mia's second, a girl, Nora, fiery redhead like her grandma's tales. Double diapers, our home a revolving nursery, laughter louder than cries. Agency hit milestone. National Award for Inclusive Design. Me on panels touting fences as metaphors. Jake beamed from front row. Elias on his knee. But year 14's shadow. Harper's diagnosis. Lymphoma creeping slow. We chose quality, pain meds. Sunny spots. His tail thumps defiant. Elias and Nora helped with treats. Tiny hands gentle. When he slipped away midsummer, Under the maple by the fence. Jake dug the grave, me holding the kids back. Tears fell collective. Scout's paw print stone joined his legacy in granite. Grief wove new threads. More foster walks, volunteering at the shelter. Elias's questions, "Where's Harper now?" answered with building fences in dog heaven. Jake's comfort grew. We gave good life. 15th anniversary. Vow renewal. Intimate. Backyard under string lights. Fence flower draped. Mia officiated. Kids ring bearers scattering petals. Words updated. Through falls and rises. I choose you. Rings refreshed. Engravings deepened. Next. Always. Years 16 through 20 blurred bountiful. Elias's T-ball triumphs. Nora's ballet recitals. Grandparent trips to Disney. Jake as goofy-hatted goof. Me snapping candids. Agency franchised. His firm unionized statewide. Conflicts ebbed. Retirement talks. Travel dreams to Korea for his roots. Provincetown repeats with kids in tow. 21st. Mia's empty nest. Her and Lena's cafe thriving. Us downsizing to a condo overlooking the plaza. Fenceless, but hearts fenced tight. Elias, teen lanky, came out non-binary. Our hug first. Love you, kiddo. Labels optional. Jake's 60th sneaked up. Surprise roast at the community center. Speeches from Cruz. Sarah toasting to the man who fixed more than fences. Health scare minor bypass. Quick recovery but reminder sharp. Time's finite. Now, 25th. Under that same October sky. Elias, they slash them. Artists like me and Nora engineering whiz. Jake's mini-me. Flank us. Spouses and littles orbiting. The fence? Long replaced. But plaque mounted, here. Hearts raced. Built 20XX. Love eternal. Jake squeezes my hand. Eyes twinkling. What happened next? I grin, pulling him close. Everything. And it was perfect. Racing still into the golden next. Unbroken.